Let's get rocking!
It's time for the Metal Groove.
We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
A podcast dedicated to music.
Party on, dude!
Extreme close up! Whoa! Whoa!
Here's your metal host,
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Tombstone Josh.
I'm your huckleberry.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of the Metal Groove Podcast. My name is Josh. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If it's your first time here, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Welcome to the Thrill Me Podcast Network. We greatly appreciate you. As you can see, I'm not in my normal place. You don't see the Ninja Turtles behind me and all that stuff. I'm actually in the middle of a road trip, and I'm putting together something for later this month. But I do have a brand new episode, and I wanted to release that. And tell you guys, I'm talking to a guy by the name of Nick Mason. I saw him whenever his band opened up for Steel Panther. And also he's on tour with Pretty Boy Floyd. So he's a well-rounded drummer. He's in a lot of projects. He's a really great guy. Good storyteller. Just really cool. Has a lot of things going on. And I'm glad he hammered out some time to talk to us, man. Because he has some great info. Like I said, he's a great storyteller. We talk drums. We talk horror-related things. And then at the end of the show, we play a song by another band of his. And the song's called Monsters Need Love Too. So check out the whole interview. He is a legend. His nickname alone, Living Dead Drummer, is just, it's perfect, man. It's fitting for him. He's actually at a cigar bar while I'm talking to him. So the lighting's a little low. And but it was a great interview. He's a great dude. I really had a lot of fun talking to him. And we learned some stuff. Like I said, I like these shows to be educational sometimes. And he taught us some things. So greatly appreciated. It's a great interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's cut to it.
Guy that I just watched crush it with the Jason Charles Miller Band. Then I find out he's on tour with Pretty Boy Floyd. He's a phenomenal drummer. I reached out to him, asked if he'd want to talk music and drums with me. And right now he's on the show, man. I just want to welcome Nick Mason. What's up, dude?
How you doing, man? How
Hey,
you
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad you're here. You told me you're in a cigar bar. Where are you at? Where in the country are you?
So I'm currently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Sweet.
And I am on tour with Pretty Boy Floyd. I just got off stage, so I'm like all sweaty, and I still have eyeliner on and everything else.
Right on.
But the venue we're at is Jurgles, and I've played here before. But when I played here, this back area was closed. So there's a cigar lounge behind the stage. So I like on the other side of the bar right here. Mm-hmm. Enuff Z'Nuff is on stage performing right now.
Awesome, man.
And this was just a quiet area because the dressing rooms are upstairs, and it was just too loud for us to do this there. So I was like, I'll go to the cigar lounge, and you know what? I enjoy a good cigar, and I enjoy a good glass of
some whiskey.
And I got a little whiskey here, and I got a nice vanilla cigar. Can't read the label on it, but it just smelled incredible when they opened up the case, and I was like, oh, that's the one I want right there.
That's perfect, man. So you're chilling. You just got off stage. You're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. If we were just hanging out together, this is what we'd be doing anyways. Stoked to talk drums with you. Like I said, I saw you in Augusta. You guys opened up for Steel Panther. Big fan of Steel Panther. I have some questions about that later. But before we dive into that, let's talk about your start with music. Was drums your first instrument?
Yes and no, actually. So my whole family was drummers. So I wasn't like given a choice. They were like, here, you're going to be a drummer like the rest of us. And in fact, my mother just the other day texted me a photo from my first Christmas. So it's like Christmas 1983, and I got a snare drum that year. Like a real one. Like I got a real snare drum. I wasn't even a year old yet.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I got a photo from Christmas 1983 where I'm holding a drum under the Christmas tree, and but I didn't learn how to play it. Like I just had it in my bedroom as a kid, and like my uncle was in a rock band, and I'd put his band's cassette tape on, and I would just kind of bang on the drum. I didn't know what I was doing. When I was about 9, I decided I actually wanted to learn how to play an instrument because like my family was all drummers on my mom's side. My dad's a guitar player. His brother's a bass player, And so I went through my rebellious teen phase early. You know, I was 9 and I decided
God.
I want to learn how to play an instrument,
Yeah.
but I don't want to play the drums. So I actually picked up alto saxophone.
Sweet, man.
Yeah,
How deep did you get into that?
1 year. 1 year, and that was it, because carrying that thing to school sucked. I walked to school, and you know, at 9 years old, the thing weighed more than I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, this sucks. So the following year, I gave in. I switched instruments to drums, because then I thought I was getting away with something special, because then all I had to do was take my drumsticks and put them in my backpack and walk to school, and I didn't have to carry this heavy, you know, instrument anymore. Little did I know
Completely.
that I'm gonna end up having the most amount of stuff to carry with me everywhere, and the heaviest equipment to carry everywhere. You know.
It's expensive hobby, man, for sure.
Yeah. So at age 10, I switched over to drums, and I learned how to actually play. I started taking lessons and learned how to actually really play them. And
cool.
Here we are, 30 some years later.
Sweet,
You
man.
know, and I'm still
You
doing
still love it. You still love it,
Still
huh?
do it. I absolutely, every day.
That's cool.
You know, I live for it.
That's cool, man. So, a lot of things I like to ask other drummers was, is there somebody you modeled your game after? Was there a song you heard that you just was like, man, like for me, it was Night Train. When I heard the cowbell, I heard Night Train. I was like, I want to learn that song. So was there one like that for you?
So it's hard to pinpoint on like one specific song, because like I said, I used to like play along with my uncle's, you know, demo tape when I was a kid. But there was a turning point with music for me where I decided rock and roll was where I wanted to be. And it was kind of a combination of things. It was in the early 90s when the grunge movement kind of happened, you know, and all of a sudden we got, like in 1991 alone, you know, we got the debuts from Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and we got Metallica's Black Album, and we got, you know, Nirvana and everything like that sort of happened at once. And that's when I went, okay, the kids' CDs are going away. The soundtrack to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is on the poster behind you, the soundtrack to that was put away and replaced by the Black Album.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So that's when I kind of decided rock was where I wanted to be. And the drummers that, you know, the music that I was listening to was, I was listening to Metallica, and I was listening to a lot of Aerosmith, and not like the old Aerosmith stuff. I was first introduced. I mean, I had heard all the old stuff growing up, because my mom was a big Aerosmith fan in the 70s and everything. So I had all those on vinyl and everything. But what kind of the cattle prod for me with them was like 93 when Get a Grip came out.
Oh, sweet.
And you couldn't turn MTV on without seeing one of their multiple hit singles, you know. I think I watched the music video to Living on the Edge every single day for a year, you know.
Yeah.
And it was, and those types of big well-produced rock albums is kind of what did it for me, and shifted my focus on how I wanted to approach playing music.
Gotcha. And did I hear Mr. Charles correct, or Mr. Miller, whatever we call him? Are you from Boston? Not Boston, Buffalo?
Buffalo, yeah, yes.
So upstate New York. How was the music scene?
Western New York.
Western New York, my bad.
Not upstate, Western New York.
My bad.
That's like putting ranch on your chicken wings, man. Someone will have your throat for that if you say that.
I don't know that rule. Down south, we prefer it that way. Uh-oh, did you? I think you froze for a second. Are you back? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
You're frozen. I can hear you still.
Okay.
I'm like a cave right now. Yeah,
I
got
you.
you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, no problem. How was the music scene?
Okay.
How was the music scene in that part of the state whenever you were first getting into playing in bands and music and stuff?
There was a lot of playing clubs and stuff like that. It was the late 90s, you know, 97, 98. And the the rock and metal scene that I was kind of involved in was very much like hardcore bands and stuff like that were very big at the time.
Gotcha.
But it was the shows I was going out to see, and it was the other bands that were on the bills with my band that sort of fell into the hardcore thing, which was cool. I loved it because I like to, you know, go on stage and play my part and then get in the pit for the band that we're opening for.
That's fun, man.
A lot of fun.
So what were you doing? You're doing a lot of blast beat stuff, a lot of double bass work. What kind of stuff were you learning early on?
None of that is stuff at all, actually.
Okay.
I don't think I even played a blast beat until like 3 years ago. And I actually didn't own a double pedal. I only had a single. And so I kind of leaned into that because like double kick stuff and was all the rage, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, again, I was being rebellious. And I was like, no, I'm going to play a single kick. And I'm going to be the only metal drummer tonight playing a single kick pedal instead of a double. And,
nice.
You know, my first real band that was, that actually like started playing gigs and started playing out and recorded an album and stuff like that. We were a very heavy rock band, but influenced by Old Sabbath and Metallica and, you know, some of the 90s bands like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and stuff like that. Those were the influences that we had all brought to the table kind of separately.
Yeah.
So our stuff wasn't super fast. There was no blast beats involved. It was, you know, guitar solos and hook oriented still, with mostly like, you know, backbeat kind of playing. And that's where I'm most comfortable. And that's still kind of what I'm doing, you know.
I gotcha. That's cool, man. Yeah. Whenever you were, I didn't, you put down a solid pocket. I didn't know. I was going to ask you the different. Do you play a different set for the different bands you go on tour with, or do you have one that you just like?
I switch between a couple different ones.
Okay.
So I do have one that's just a studio kit, and it's only ever seen the stage maybe twice. And that one stays in my studio. And it's mic'd up for recording sessions and stuff. And then live, I have a few different kits. Okay. So if I'm playing locally, like if I'm doing a local gig back home in LA, I don't want to break my back with heavy road cases.
Yes.
So I have like a very scaled down, small, compact kit. It's only like a 20-inch bass drum, and the toms are so tiny. They're 8, 10, 14.
Wow. Really small,
lightweight hardware and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you see me playing around LA, that's the kit I'm usually playing. For touring, I have two different kits, and they fluctuate depending on the band I'm playing. What I use most often is I play Yamaha drums, so all my kits are Yamaha, and I have one of their Oak Live custom sets, and it's big rock sizes. That's what I played with Jason. It's all flat black with black hardware, and it looks really cool, and big 24-inch bass drum and two big floor toms, 16 and 18 floor toms.
Yeah.
And I actually have a bunch of smaller toms for that kit too that I've never used.
Wow.
They sit on a shelf. I have an 8 and a 10, and I don't think I've ever used the 8. The 10 I probably used 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
So that's the kit that gets the most work on the road. I do have another set that's a double bass set with 2 kick drums, 222s. Oh. That one I've only taken out on tour once, and it was last year. And actually, the venue I'm playing right now tonight, I played it here at this venue a year ago. And that's because it's got 2 kick drums. I can't get away with it with everybody I play. I can't use that with Jason. You know, first of all, there's no double kick in any of his songs anyway. But the paint job on it is what kind of is the nail in the coffin for most people, because it's white, but it has blood splatter all over the shells and got bloody handprints and drag marks and stuff like that. And it's really cool. And the symbols all match. They're all red, and they're the same color red as the blood. It was something really cool that Yamaha put together for me a couple years ago. And I've used it a couple times on like one-off gigs here and there, but I've only taken it on like an actual tour once, because most people are like, bring the black one because it's neutral. You know, it can do everything.
Yeah, gotcha. So going back to the difference of playing styles, like when I think of the band I saw you with in Augusta, kind of straight up? Would you call that like bluesy rock?
Yeah, it's southern rock, it's blues, it's got a little country flair to it because there's a lot of slide guitar and everything in the songs. You know, some of the songs on his records are leaning into country even more with like lap steel and fiddle and stuff like that. But we on the road, depending on who we're paired up with touring wise, like you saw us with Steel Panther, so we kind of shy away from the more country songs and play some of the stuff that's a little bit heavier. You know,
killer guitar solo,
it's very blues,
heavy rock.
Very blues based southern rock kind of stuff.
And then on the flip side, we have I think what you called sleazy 80s rock and roll. Which one do you like playing more? Is there one style you lean towards more, or you just enjoy it all together? What are you doing different in between?
I mean, they're very different gigs. With Pretty Boy Floyd, there's a lot more double kick. I mean, the first 2 songs that we play in the set, I'm just blasting double bass through half the song. It's hit as hard as you can, very little dynamics in the songs. You know, a lot of stick twirls and big monkey arms and stuff, although that I work that into everything. But, you know,
I noticed your elbow drop on the hi-hat. Your elbow drop on the hi-hat. I noticed you
I do that
just
that's just a goof, and I do it half the time just to see if I can make the guitar player laugh. But you know, like there's a lot of China cymbal accents and stuff like that with Floyd and everything, and with Jason, like no China cymbal. I brought one out once for one night on the tour just because it was a big stage, and I was like, I got one with me, why not? I think I used it to like count a song in, and that was it. So they're very different styles of playing. Jason's a lot more backbeat stuff. It's stay in the pocket and groove. I like both, but honestly, like that stay in the pocket and groove thing is much more in my comfort zone because, like I said, I grew up playing along to Aerosmith records and stuff like that, and like Joey Kramer's a pocket drum, like frills. There's no unnecessary drum fills. There's no insane, really difficult, syncopated nothing. There's no, you don't have to have crazy chops to get through their songs. And I'm not saying that as a derogatory thing. I'm not taking away from that. I like that. And with Jason, I don't play on his records. So he has Kenny Arnoff. The great Kenny Arnoff is his studio guy and plays all the drums on his records. And I'm totally okay with that. I'm fine with that because I have a lot of respect for Kenny. He's been a good friend of mine for a number of years. He actually, when Jason first hired me last year, he actually called me and left me a voicemail, you know, he was on tour with like Joe Satriani and they were in Spain or something. And he left me a voicemail just kind of saying, hey, you know, I'm glad you have this gig. You're great for I told Jason you're perfect for it, blah, blah, blah. And so he gave me his blessing. And the cool thing about Kenny is he is that pocket backbeat drummer and he makes my job very easy. I kind of always make the joke, like, he doesn't play anything I can't play. He just does it better. So, you know, he makes it very, very, very easy for me. Anytime Jason's got a new record or a new song or something like that, and he sends it to me, he's like, hey, can you learn this? Yeah, I would love to learn this. Oh my God, I'm going to have so much fun with it. And we, right before the tour, like literally the day before the tour, the guitar player's like, I really want to play this song. And it was one of the new ones on the new record. I'd never even heard it before. And I'm like, okay. So I woke up that morning, went down for breakfast. We had rehearsal that day. The first night of the tour was the next day. And I just listened to the song while having coffee, and I charted it out. And I went, okay. We went to the studio and played it, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine.
Perfect, man. Love that.
And there was nothing, no mistakes, no nothing. It was like, okay, I know Kenny's going to make my job easy. I love that. That's awesome. Awesome. It's a pleasure
if you can be like-minded with another musician, it helps. Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah, very much. Very much.
And so I sent out, you know, when I was talking to you back and forth about this, I said, not only do I like to have fun, talk drums, I like to be educational. You kind of learn some things on the show. And your answer you sent back to me, I thought was brilliant in itself. You said, it's important to be an educated musician. in general. So could you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I grew up sort of under the belief that if you want to learn how to do something, you take lessons for it. You go and you get an education. So I took drum lessons from age 10 to age 26.
Wow.
And when I say took lessons, I mean there was no period of time off. I didn't take summers off. I didn't stop for a little while and then come back to it. I took lessons once a week from ages 10 to 26.
That's incredible.
Right up until the week that I moved to Los Angeles. And then even after I moved to Los Angeles, I would get with other drum teachers and other drummers, and I would take lessons once in a while. And I still do that, where if I get called to play a gig with somebody and there's something in that music that's a little out of my wheelhouse, I'll call up a friend who maybe is way better at that one specialized thing and say, hey, come over and give me a lesson. Put me through the ringer, pretend I've never played before, and help me with this.
Wow.
And I'll take lessons with friends. And so I'm a big believer in learning how to do things properly. And I also teach drums. I started teaching at the recommendation of my drum teacher. I started teaching private lessons in little mom and pop music stores when I was 18. And I continue to do that to this day. I've been teaching for over 20 something years now. And I teach when I'm not on tour. I teach during the week in the afternoons doing private lessons. And some of my students have now gone on to also become teachers. And I have other students that have gone on and they have some really respectable, very high profile gigs. I have one student right now. She's got a better gig than I do. You know, she's out touring with Jerry Cantrell.
Wow.
And,
that's killer.
And
I have a couple more random ones, but first, in regards to drumming, what kind of cymbals are you playing, and do you change it up?
Yes and no. Well, first of all, cymbals that I'm playing are Paiste. I use all Paiste cymbals. I've been an artist of theirs since 2017. I've played other cymbals before. I've played other brands before, and there's nothing wrong with any of the other brands that are out there. But what I found myself doing was picking out cymbals based on what was comparable to what I liked out of the Paiste line.
Okay.
And I went, why am I doing that? Why not just go to the source? Why am I trying to figure out which hi-hats sound the closest to those ones? Why don't I just get those ones? Right? So so I started playing Paiste cymbals around 2017, and I'll never look back. They're amazing. And so I play a combination of the 2002 line and the 900 series. And you might think they're drastic because the 2002s are their top end professional stuff. That's what Bonham used, and like all these great players throughout history, Alex Van Halen. And then the 900s are relatively new, and they're more moderately priced. But honestly, when you put them on a kit together, they blend so well. They blend incredibly well. So with most rock bands, I'll use all 900s. And I usually use 14-inch sound edge hi-hats. I'll use a 22-inch heavy ride. And I'll use either two 19-inch crashes, or I'll use two 19-inch crashes with a 19 or 20-inch heavy crash.
Wow.
Right. Sometimes I like using three crashes.
Yeah.
And then an 18-inch China. And that's kind of the standard setup. And I have that for both. I have that all in 2002s. And in the studio, I'll use that on lighter gigs. I'll use that on less aggressive gigs. I'll use that. And then with anything rock oriented where I got to hit a little harder, I just switch it up to the 900s, but the exact same sizes.
Okay.
And the same model. So it's still going to be sound edge hi-hats. It's still going to be a heavy ride. It's still going to be 19-inch crashes with maybe a 20. It's still going to be an 18-inch China. It's just going to be the 900 series because I can lay into them a little bit more. They're not as expensive, so I'm not heartbroken when I break one. And then with the current tour, what I'm doing is I'm using a mixture. And the reason for that is because I was doing the two tours consecutively. With Floyd, I always use all 900s. With Jason, I always used all 2002s. And I was like, oh, crap, I got to do both.
Yeah.
I'm literally going from one tour to the other. The same night Jason's tour ended.
Mhm.
3 hours later, I was at the airport to fly out to go do Floyd's tour.
Wow.
So I was
Jeez.
like, okay, well, I don't want to bring two sets of cymbals. That's going to be a pain in the ass. What do I have that can do both jobs? So I mixed them. So I'm using two 19-inch 2002 crashes, a 20-inch 900 heavy crash, an 18-inch China, a 22-inch power ride. And with Jason, I did bring two sets of hi-hats. I have a set of 900 hats that I'm using with Floyd. And I was using them with Jason, but after about 3 shows, I switched them up and I put the 2002 sound edges in there. I think with his music, they blended a little bit better.
Okay.
And with Floyd, it's a little bit, it's heavier. I'm playing them open a lot more.
Mhm.
So for that, I went with the 900s for that. But I think honestly, having done this sort of half and half mixture for these 2 tours, I think it convinced me that the next time I go out with Jason, I'm gonna do all 900s.
Just trying to-
Yeah, I love the 2002s and they sound beautiful, but his guitar player keeps pushing me to hit harder and hit harder and hit harder. And I'm already like hitting hard. I'm like, I can't hit any harder, man. I'm hitting as hard as I normally do.
Yeah.
But he really likes me to be as loud as possible. Like he encourages me to be incredibly loud and hit really hard. So I think the next tour with Jason, I'm actually gonna do all 900s on the kit for all the cymbals. But I'll do the same setup. I'll do 14-inch hats, 22-inch ride, 2 19s and a 20. I just will ditch the China.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it sounded good. The thing I think I noticed the most about your kit at the show I saw was the snare depth sounded incredible, and it did sound like you were hammering that thing. So I have a question about the snare, like those chop beats, just pop, 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 pop. There's a couple songs where you're doing that. I was like, oh, that sounds so good.
Thank you.
Are you a Remo? Are you an Evans heads guy? Where do you stand on that?
Actually,
What's
Aquarium. Aquarium drum
wow.
heads.
Good.
Yeah, I got a little louder in here because Enough's Enough just finished, and there's a WNBA game on the TVs right now, and it just, without Enough's Enough drowning it out, it got louder in here. Sorry.
It's fine. No problem. No problem.
So I use Aquarium drum heads. For the snare, I'm using it's called a high velocity, and it's a double ply head, so it's like a Remo Emperor, but it has a dot underneath like the controlled sounds do, but the dot is actually bigger than normal. It takes up more surface area, and I use those on the road just because they're more durable. They last me a lot longer. I was using a single ply head for a while, and I was having to change the snare head every night. I'd get one night out of it and it was done, and I'm like, I can't afford to bring
97
snare heads with me, right? I can't afford to do this, so I'll bring 4 or 5 snare heads with me, change it every couple nights, and use a thicker head. And so I used to change the snare head every 3 shows, and now I'm changing it every 6 because they changed up their coating this year. They have a new coating they're using now, and I'm able to get way more life out of the heads now. So I've been changing the snare head like every 5 or 6 shows.
It's great.
Which is awesome. Yeah. And the snare I was using, the depth isn't anything crazy. It's a 6.5, so it's relatively standard. But that's a custom snare. That's a bell brass snare.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and it's a Yamaha snare, which Yamaha doesn't make a bell brass, but I have one. So it's a 3 millimeter thick bronze shell, and it's aged bronze, which is really nice. And I use that with most rock bands. That's kind of my go-to snare drum most of the time. And with Jason in the past, I always used something more like a Black Beauty. Okay. And again, I always try to emulate the sounds of the record. Okay. So knowing that Kenny Aronoff is playing on the record, Kenny's signature snare drum that Tama sells is basically a Black Beauty. It's a 1.2 millimeter brass shell with black chrome plating. I'm like, okay, that's a Ludwig Black Beauty. So I have one of those from Yamaha. You know, I have a 1.2 brass shell that they did a black powder coat on the shell, so it looks like a Black Beauty, and it matches the kit, and that's usually what I use with him. But on his new record, the sounds on the new record were a little more aggressive.
Okay.
And I heard him say in some interviews, like if he takes 5 snare drums to a session, the Bell Brass is one of them. And I didn't ask him, and I should have, but I thought, I wonder if he used a Bell Brass on a couple of these songs. So when we were in rehearsals, I started bringing different snare drums to each rehearsal, sort of to kind of figure out what sounds best with the new songs. Like I knew what was sounding best with the old songs, but we were only going to play a couple of old ones. We're going to be playing mostly stuff off the new record.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, well, which snare drum kind of fits most with these? And I settled on my Bell Brass. And man, I was so happy with it. And unfortunately, I'd have it out with me now, but I broke it the last night of the tour.
Oh no.
I broke the throw off on it. And
Yeah.
and it sucks because it's the second time I've broken the throw off on this thing. I don't know if I'm just hitting it too hard or what, but I've broken 2 throw offs in this thing before. So I left that snare drum with all of my gear for Jason because I was flying out. So I took my backup snare out for Floyd, which is it's actually bigger. It's a thinner shell. It's still a brass shell. It's a 1.2 brass snare, but it's 7 inches deep.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I've used this particular snare on tours with Floyd in the past. So for that big, fat, gated 80s rock sound,
Yeah,
I know it
probably.
can do that job because I've used it before.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the snare that I've brought out on this tour. And honestly, every night I've been really, really happy with it. So I think when it comes to Jason, I'll probably stick with the Bell Brass. And when it comes to Floyd, I'll probably do the thinner brass shell that's deeper. And I think from now on, I'm going to stick to that. I've been very happy with it, the way it's been sounding, especially the last couple nights, man. They put just a little compression and a bunch of reverb on that snare, and it's,
I feel like it filled up the
fucking
whole
Paradise City
auditorium
every
that night, man. It sounded so clean. I was like, I'm sold, man. I want one of those. So it's been a blast talking drums, talking music with you. So whenever I got in touch with you on how to talk to you, I noticed you had an interesting name. So I was like, you know what? I got to find out what this name is about. Is he part of a band? And that's the name of the band because it's, but I found out it's your nickname and it's Living Dead Drummer.
Yeah.
How in the world do
So-
you get that nickname? And then, and if, it's spooky season, October's here now. I had a couple of horror related questions for you, my friend.
Good. Give me 1 second. This keeps going out because I'm yapping my mouth. And so give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
I can't get it to relight now. Whatever. All right, I'll just talk. Living Dead Drummer came back in 2016. It was. I got a phone call from, I don't know if you're familiar with the Coffin Case Company. They make coffin-shaped guitar cases.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And they have some other products, and they have 1 or 2 small things for drummers. There's they have a stick bag, and I've always loved their stuff, and I have a great relationship with their owner, Johnny Coffin. And he called me up and he said, hey, we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, and we're going to do a big thing for it at the NAMM show in January. And I'd like you to be a part of it. And I said, great, I'm in. I'd love to do it, but I'm a drummer and you make guitar cases. What am I supposed to do? And it's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. So after some back and forth and tossing some ideas around, what they decided was they always had these alternative and goth runway models that would be in all the magazine ads and stuff with the Coffin guitars and guitar cases. And he said, well, we usually do like a fashion show, like a Coffin fashion show. He said, what if we do that, but we have you on the side of the stage playing drums to it all? And then it became me and a buddy doing it. So we're flanking the stage. So we built these matching stand-up drum sets that we could play standing up. And we had them on each side of the stage with a catwalk in the middle. And they were just blasting metal, blasting like Pantera and all this stuff. And the girls were coming out and doing runway modeling. And we were just basically playing along to it. And it was a cool show because it was there was a band that Lemmy was in, and this is right after he had passed away. So the band that, it wasn't Motorhead, but he had like a side band. They played, and then LA Guns played, and then Visto Blanco played, and then we did the runway fashion show, and then after the fashion show, John Five played.
Wow.
And they wanted us dressed up like corpses. Like their exact quote was, "We want it to look like you just crawled out of a grave and got behind your drums."
Nice.
And so they had us all done up like, like we had just come out of the grave. Our clothes were all tattered and ratty, and we're wearing these Victorian jackets and stuff like that, and our hair is all up, and we got this cool corpse paint on. And it was kind of from that where the people started saying backstage, "Oh, it's the Living Dead drummers over here," kind of thing. And the light bulb went off, and I was like, Living Dead drummer, I like that.
Yeah,
and I did some clever Googling and found out that no one's ever put those three words together.
Yes.
There's Living Dead this, Living Dead that, Night of the Living Dead, blah, 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 but no one's ever stuck drummer next to it.
Yeah.
So then I called the trademark office and I filed for the trademark, and I got the website and the email address. I switched over all my social media. I was like, this is perfect, because I'm sure, as you know, there is another Nick Mason in the world who plays drums. And, Pink Floyd's drummer, which ironically, we're both in bands with Floyd in the title. Pure coincidence. We're not related. I've never met the guy. I wasn't named after him. It was just a coincidence.
So that family drummer you're talking about wasn't him, huh?
No, absolutely not. My family likes to use existing family names. So there's 3 Williams, and there's a couple of Jameses, and there's a couple of Anthonys, and they just didn't have it's been a while since we've had a Nicky in the family. You know what I mean? It was like that.
Yeah.
So it was all coincidence. But because of that, because using my regular name, I was never clever enough to come up with a stage name or anything, and I always thought that was kind of dumb. So I just used my real name. And the problem with that was then I would often get confused for him if I'm emailing somebody, or especially in the industry. I called up a buddy of mine that worked for this drum company one time, and it was completely about something unrelated. But like when he answered the phone, he thought it was the other guy. And I'm like, no, not the English guy, me. And, or I'd get like, on social media, I'd get people wishing me a happy birthday on the wrong day, and then I look it up and it's his birthday, not mine, or whatever. You know what I mean? And it just led to a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So this was kind of my finally way out of the confusion, where it was like, oh, if I switch over all my social media handles and website and everything, instead of being like, Nick Mason Music or Nick Mason Drums or whatever it was, if I just put Living Dead drummer, it was like, oh, now there's no more confusion.
Yeah.
Now no one's really ever confusing me for that. Some people will still be like, oh, there's another one. And I was like, yeah, I do know that. No relation, but it ends there. I'm no longer getting emails for him. And I'm no longer getting people commenting stuff, Pink Floyd stuff online or anything like that. Like that's all kind of been wiped out thanks to this Living Dead drummer thing. And then I kind of ran with it, and I was like, well, I'm going to make t-shirts, and I'm going to make hoodies, and I'm going to, so I have all that. It says it on my drumsticks,
I want them. I want the shirt. I want the sticks. I want it all, man. Because the Living Dead drummer is a badass dude.
I'll send you some stuff, man. I'll send you some stuff.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, we did everything. We did patches and stickers and hoodies and t-shirts, and I sell them all on my website, and the drumsticks say it on there. And like, I just thought, okay, now it's a brand, now I can run with it. Now it's a brand.
It's perfect.
And it worked. So I'm just, there it is,
And like we talked about in that email chain as well, horror and metal just go together.
They do. They go hand in hand. And I've always been a big horror fan. I grew up on horror movies. I love them. It's what I probably watch the most when I'm at home. And I go all out for Halloween every year, and I got a drum set with blood splatter all over the
Yeah,
shelf,
yeah.
you know. So
It
again,
fits.
the horror angle works great, you know.
I love it, man. And
So
I have a couple Halloween horror related random quick
sure,
shot trivia, not trivia, but questions for you.
all right, sure,
Do you remember the first costume you ever wore as a kid for Halloween? Like I was always
yep.
Batman for like 7 years in a row. Do you remember?
Uh,
What were you?
I was Batman. I was Batman a couple times also, but I do remember my first one. You're gonna laugh. So keep in mind, early '80s. All right, my
Western New
first
York.
Western New York. My first Halloween,
Uh,
I was Orko from He-Man, from Masters of the Universe. I was Orko, his goofy
nice.
wizard, you know, who kept you know, screwing everything up.
Mhm.
My grandmother uh was a fantastic artist and could make anything, and she made a number of my Halloween costumes as a kid.
That's cool.
And she made me an Orko costume. My first Halloween, you know, like I said, it must have been like 1983. I was Orko from Masters of the Universe.
That's cool, man. That's a good place to start, man. That's a good one. Whenever I finally found your Instagram, I was like, if this guy has never dressed as Dracula, if he's never been casted as Dracula in anything, that feels like a miss to me because you have a great look already, but you
Oh,
as a
thank you.
vampire would kill it. And I mean, pun
I've
intended there.
I've done the vampire thing a few times. I've definitely ventured into that territory, and I've done the vampire thing a few times.
That's cool, man. What would you say is your must watch this time of year horror movie? What is that one that you have to get in every year?
I mean, John Carpenter's Halloween.
Nice.
Like that is an absolute must for me. I have to watch John Carpenter's Halloween, the original one. None of these new ones that came out, I really disliked them. None of the Rob Zombie ones.
Uh,
Love Rob Zombie's music. I don't like his Halloween movies. I have to watch that original one.
that's cool, man.
So yeah.
What would you say is an underrated one? Like for me, I'm a big fan of the very first Jeepers Creepers that came out. Like that whole series gets a
Okay.
lot of shit, but the first one to me it's solid, man. I feel like it's underrated. What's one for you?
I think the first one's the only one I've seen.
Ah,
Underrated. Um, Man, you know which one kind of comes to mind, and I don't know that it's underrated because maybe there's more of a cult following for it than I realized, but it was one that I slept on for a long time, and then when I
mhm.
finally saw it, I'm like, why have I not been watching this every year? And
Yeah.
that's Trick or Treat.
Oh, okay.
Trick or Treat. I really like anthology movies like that where they'll take four different stories and then by the end of the movie they sort of all tie them together.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, I had never seen Trick or Treat. And then finally, it kind of clicked to me a couple of years ago where I'm like, I've never seen Trick or Treat. Why have I not seen this movie? People seem to
What?
like it. So I watched it. And then I was like, oh my God, why have I not been watching this? So that's another one that like I try to fit in every year at some point.
That's
I
cool.
really like that one.
That's a
Yeah.
great choice. What would you say is the greatest Halloween candy of all time? Or which one are you getting that you're like, oh, this is it. This is the one.
Candy corn.
Candy
Candy
corn. We
corn,
got a candy
easy.
corn fan. What is
Candy corn.
this?
I know, candy corn. I mean, it's literally the Halloween candy. And I'm
Yeah.
also like the little mallow pumpkins
Oh, the
that are like
pumpkins.
made
Yep.
out of the same thing. That's my favorite. Those were always my favorite as a kid. And I actually have pumpkin like it looks like a gumball dispenser that's shaped like a pumpkin.
Sweet.
And I fill it every year with candy corn and the little mallow pumpkins. And then
That's
like I'll just
cool.
walk by the kitchen table like 10 times a day and be like a little
That's
shot
cool.
of candy corn.
I like that. That's an unpopular opinion too. A lot of people don't like
It
candy
is.
corn.
It is an
Um,
unpopular opinion.
yeah. So, all right, we talked a little bit of horror. We talked a little bit of drums.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation, man. I've enjoyed it so much. You have so many projects going on. The song I actually want to play on the show is one that's called "Monsters Need Love Too." I feel like it just fits the
Yes.
theme of the year. I really dug the song. Can you tell us a little bit about that song?
So that's with the band The Rhythm Coffin, which is a band I've been a part of for a number of years. We're kind of on a hiatus right now. Unfortunately, our singer and guitar player has had some health issues in the last year, and we're hoping that things go well. That and he's got a speedy recovery. So we've been kind of dormant for the last year and a half or so, but That's just a fun band. The Rhythm Coffin is just a fun band. Like I was a fan of them before I joined them.
Uh-huh.
They hit me up years ago when they needed a new drummer. And I went and I jammed with them and we had a great time. And they're like, we want you as our drummer. And my touring schedule at the time just didn't line up where it was like, well, I'm going to be gone from this date to this date. And that's like all you have your busiest time of year is in the fall for obvious reasons. They're a horror themed rock band, you know? And I couldn't commit to the schedule and it sucked. And then like 2 years later, they hit me up again and they're like, hey, could you recommend somebody for us? We're kind of in need of a drummer again. And I was like, no, I'm not recommending anybody. I'll do it. I'm doing it. I don't care. We'll figure it out. I'm your drummer now.
Yeah.
So Monsters Need Love Too was a song we put out for Valentine's Day a couple of years ago.
Sweet.
We started sort of like theming all of our music releases.
Okay.
And when I say theming, like we would tailor our merchandise to the release. So we did it in a record a couple of years ago. And the cover of it was orange. So then we got, you know, orange guitar picks and orange t-shirts and you know what I mean? Like we themed everything. And then the next one we did, well, the cover was predominantly green. Okay, green guitar picks, green t-shirts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Monsters Need Love Too, we actually released that as a single independently of an actual like EP or LP release, and which is what we've done the last couple of years. We, instead of putting out another record, we've just put out singles every few months. And
Nice.
Monsters Need Love Too we put out for Valentine's Day, but we did still do the same sort of merchandise campaign with it, where it's got the green heart kind of thing with the Frankenstein stitches on it. We did t-shirts, we did guitar picks, we did stickers, we did, so to back the campaign of just the single, we did that too. And it was really just a love letter of like, if you've ever seen the Frankenstein movies, you'll know that, you know, the creature is more of a sympathetic character. He's misjudged, he's mistreated, and really what he's just looking for is love, which is apparent in the sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, when he demands Dr. Frankenstein make him a mate, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea behind that song, is like, hey, monsters might be scary, but we need love too. That's all we're looking for. Is we're just looking for love and acceptance as well. You know,
That's cool.
the fact that we're scary is a byproduct. So that's kind of the story behind that song.
That's cool, man. It's a great tune. I really enjoyed it. And you know, you sent me a whole list of songs that you're on, and your drumming is phenomenal. I'm glad I got to talk to you. I'm glad I learned some things from you. It's been a great convo. Where you guys, how long are you gonna be on the road with Pretty Boy Floyd? How much longer is that going?
I think we have 4 more dates.
Okay.
We have no days off. Our only day off was Monday, which you and I were supposed to chat Monday evening, and I'm sorry we had to reschedule, but you're gonna hate this. There's a very important Monday Night Football game on.
I was gonna ask if you're a Bills fan, man.
And I had to watch the Bills play that night. Yeah. So I apologize for rescheduling, but this is actually kind of a cooler atmosphere here where I can have some scotch and have a, you know. So I'm a Bills fan. And a Sabres fan. I'm a big hockey fan too.
Yeah. Comes with the territory.
We have 4 more. Yep, we have 4 more dates beyond this. Today's Wednesday. So we got tomorrow. We're in Chicago. Then we're in Hobart, Indiana. Then we go to Harrison. We're in Ohio after that. And then back to Pennsylvania on Sunday.
Cool.
And then so we're kind of doing this weird circle thing with these last couple of shows, because we were just in Ohio yesterday too. Then I fly home next Monday. So yeah, I got 5 days before I'm back home. And as soon as I get home, and I'm talking like 3 days after I get home, I'm back with Jason.
Oh man.
So we're doing with Jason, we're doing a record release party, because his record came out and we like literally were on tour like days after his record came out. So there was no like formal, let's have a record release party the way people do. We were just on tour.
Yeah.
So we're doing a record release party in Los Angeles, like 4 days after I get home. And then the week after that, I'm playing with a group called Street Drum Corps, which is a percussion group. It's all drummers. It's like a punk rock Nine Inch Nails version of the Blue Man Group.
Oh, nice.
And that band's celebrating its 20th anniversary.
Wow.
I've been with the band for about 13 or 14 years at this point.
That's killer.
So we're doing our 20th anniversary party, which is a big, huge concert thing, which I was just sent the music for it this morning, so I have to refresh myself. It's been a minute since I played those songs.
Yeah.
So I do that. So that takes care of October, and then November, back on the road with Floyd.
Wow. Busy man.
So we have a couple of weeks in November that we're doing fly dates around the country for. I think we got 3 shows in Texas, and we got 2 shows in Arizona. So starting right away on the 1st of November. And I think that about wraps it up for the year. I think we're done
cool,
after November.
Yeah, it sounds like you need I mean, you can obviously tell that you love drumming, but it sounds like you need a little bit of a break there, buddy. But if you guys ever, or if you specifically ever in South Carolina, specifically Charleston, if you're close, we got to hang out, man, go to dinner or something. Steel Panther, I'm a big fan of them. Anytime they're close to South Carolina, I go. So I'm glad I went to the Augusta show and saw you, met you. Glad we got to talk.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll
pleasure.
definitely be in that area again. I just don't know what, because right now the dates that people are talking about for 2025 so far are all out of the country.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, like right now, Floyd's got one that's announced for next September in England. So chances are we're going to put a 2-week or 3-week thing in Europe around that.
Yeah.
And then there's talk of some other stuff in the spring, but again, not in like out of the country. So until I know more, but I'll definitely let you know when we do come back through that area.
Yeah, and then anybody that wants to get merch of yours, or if they just want to see what you're up to, Living Dead Drummer. That's on everything, website, socials.
Yep,
that's everything.
Yeah, the merch can all be bought through my website, which is livingdeaddrummer.com. If you want to connect with me on any social media platform, the username on all of them is Living Dead Drummer. So it won't be hard to find. And I'm on everything. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I don't use, like, I have a TikTok, but I don't really use it. So that's probably not a good place to find me because I really ignore it. The Twitter too, I don't really use it very much. Instagram is kind of the one that I use the most.
That's a good one.
And it's the one I kind of engage with the most. I think it's because it's the easiest one, and I'm not good with technology. So the easiest thing's Instagram or Facebook, but like you can, just look up Living Dead Drummer. Everything out there is me.
The one and only Living Dead Drummer, man. I'm glad I had you on the show. Last thing, just because it popped in my head, do you ever get the chance to go to Halloween Horror Nights in LA? And do you like it?
I love those things. Weirdly enough, I've never been to Horror Nights. The lines are very long and it's pretty expensive, but I've done all the other ones. Like I've done Not Scary Farm, and I'll go to Dark Harbor Nights at the Queen Mary. And then the cool thing is there's a lot of actual smaller independent ones. Yeah. That people will sometimes, like, they'll just build them in their backyard. Yeah, and they're all outstanding and they're all so much fun. Yeah, man. So usually on Halloween, I'll go around neighborhoods in like Burbank and stuff like that, and people will have haunts and stuff like that set up on their front lawn. And I'll go do that all night.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's really, really, really cool stuff like that. So I do enjoy those. I try to get to as many of those as time allows.
Yeah, I hear you, man. You're a busy guy. Thank you so much for hammering out some time to talk to me. You're the man. Stay safe out there on the road, man. I like to wrap up every show by saying, stay metal.
Thank you, man. Stay metal.
Hey, that's the show for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And join us here at the Thrill Me Podcast Network, where you can check out phenomenal shows like Haunters Podcast, The Review of Rob Show, The Mr. Wonderful Show, and Core Memory Unlocked. We greatly appreciate you, and until next time, stay metal.